Hey everybody, welcome back to the Zone of Potential Quick Zaps. My name is Corinne Schultz and I'm your host for this video. Although the content of these videos can be used for any of life's purposes, Quick Zaps are primarily focused on helping professionals transition to new jobs, into new careers, or into retirement. This week's topic is on trust. Last week I touched on our state of mind. Why am I bringing this up? Because it's the last thing, your emotion is the last thing that occurs for every decision we make. So if you're not aware of your feelings, how would you know what drives you? And if you're not mindful of what your state is, you may be limiting your potential of getting into something that you're either not ready to or not in line with what's important to you. So during this video, we'll talk about trust in yourself and others. We'll talk about what's stopping us from trusting. We'll offer a way to identify relationships that you may want to improve your trust, and then a way to analyze decisions we've made or decisions we're getting ready to make. So before we move on, this video will not only be posted on YouTube, but I will also post this to my Zone of Potential site. It is under construction right now, so none of the links work, but that's okay. I also, once it is live though, I also have a free downloadable for you. It's a workbook or a journal, however you want to use it, to help you in your pathway in your zone of potential. And then I also create weekly newsletters called Ponderous Points, and this could be any topic of interest to start your week, things that you will encounter throughout your week. So it gives you a different perspective, a way to look at things. So like a DJ, please keep in mind that I do take requests. So if you have a point that you would like us to ponder on, or a video that you'd like me to construct, by all means, don't hesitate. Please send it to corinne.schultz@zoneofpotential.com. Or you could post it right here into the YouTube comments. So when we talk about trust, think about the last year. Think about how you've been with trusting yourself and others. What's your time at home been like? What about at work? With your peers and with your colleagues, your coworkers, your bosses? What about with your neighbors, or in the community, or in any other communities that you participate in? And as you think about that, in how you are, not how necessarily they are, but how you are, would you follow you? Think about someone you know who demonstrates trust that you would follow. Who is that? And what are those attributes that they have that you so admire? And as you think about those times during the year, can you imagine how effective your level of trust has been in yourself and others? And how do you know? Well, the problem here that I see, and Sir Isaac Newton said it very nicely, men build too many walls and not enough bridges. So many of us struggle with making decisions. We have negative talk about what we decide when we do make our decisions, and then we beat ourselves up for the choices that we didn't achieve our desired outcomes. Not only does this affect our ability to trust ourselves, well, it in turn quite often affects our ability to trust others when they are demonstrating, the qualities of trust that are necessary. So it extends. And we all know that relationships with ourselves and others are built on a foundation of trust. So imagine making good choices based on your desired end states, and then extending the same trust to others who warrant it without worrying. So what makes us trust and takes away from our ability to trust? When we trust ourselves and then as we trust others, we look at two primary factors. For ourselves, we look at our intent because we have that inner voice. And when we look at our intent, when we get limited or when we're approving, if you will, of our decisions, we have, I kind of captured 4 emotions that we go through. And like the first one is doubt. Are we doubtful or are we assured? And a lot of doubt comes when we're not committed. And so if we're uncommitted, then we're going to doubt that we're ever going to get it done. Prime example of that is New Year's resolutions. How often do we see a New Year's resolution all the way through? So doubt is one. Or are you assured? Have you done this before? Or you know that this is something you really want and you know you're going to put your best foot forward. And then the second one is fear or courageousness. So are you afraid of failure or success? Or are you courageous? Do you have the intestinal fortitude to overcome failure and reach for success? A prime example of that is a marathon. So if you are afraid of failing at a marathon because you can't see yourself doing it or whatever the case may be, that's your internal talk. So your intent is limited by your fear of failure. Or maybe it's success. Maybe you have a fear of success. If I succeed, then I'm going to have to do better. And I don't know if I can do any better than what I've just succeeded at. People have gone so far in their lives. You can keep doing better. And you can keep raising the bar. And then the next intent, the next emotion tied with intent is worry. Remember, these are the 4 that I just kind of picked out. There's plenty more. Worry, or are you at ease or comfortable with what's going on? So do you feel inadequate in the decisions that you've made? Or the decisions you're getting ready to make? Or the events that you're getting ready to go into? So an example of that is an interview. So did you prepare enough? And then once you get out of the interview, and you're walking out, did you feel like you nailed it? Or did you feel like you flopped it? Are you worried that you're not going to get the job? And so that's an example of worry and inadequacies. And then uncaring, or are you concerned? So are you flippant about the decisions you make because you don't care what it's going to do, how it's going to extend and impact others? Prime example of this is drunk driving. So do you not care what the impact of your drunk driving is going to have, or even if it's not drunk driving, aggressive driving is going to have on other folks? Or are you flippant? So that's yourself. As you look at yourself, you look at intent. We judge ourselves by our intent. We judge others by their behavior. So we judge others' trust by their behaviors because that's all we can see. We can't see their intent. We can see what they're doing. So I picked out 4 for behaviors. 4, as you see these behaviors, this is what it does to us. This is what it does to the person, me, who's trying to extend the trust to others. And we don't know their intent. Or even if we did hear their intent, we're not quite sure that we have the trust to believe in that intent. So here we go. So suspicious. Are we suspicious or are we sure of them? And part of that is deceitfulness, right? So if there's rumors out there going on, and even if the person were to come talk to me about a rumor about somebody else, I'm like, oh, okay, then is this person also telling rumors about me? So I become suspicious of their intent. And then neglect and care. Are they uncooperative? Are they uncooperative in the workforce, whether it's in a group or a team situation, or even with people's information? So like PII is another one. Personally identifiable information. So if I'm handling PII, am I sure I can trust that person with my PII? Have they been negligent, Or do they take care of my personal information? And then the next one that I picked was unsafe or protected. So this is in line with abusiveness. Mentally, emotionally, physically. So this is abuse, right? So if somebody is abusive to me, I won't feel safe. So I'm not going to extend my trust of being with that person. Or do I feel protected? Person would never hurt me. Their intent is never to hurt me. And I like to think noble intent, but the behaviors make me think of something different. And then the last one that I picked out was timidness and bold. Are you timid? Do they make you feel timid in their behaviors that you're seeing, or do you feel bold? Bold enough that you can actually say what you need to say because your intent is noble. And so the two areas that I looked at for timid or bold is insecurity is one. If you're being micromanaged constantly, and maybe by one person, by many people, your level of trust in that one person or many people, what have you, you're going to feel your trust is going to wane, and you're going to feel insecure. You're going to feel insecure about yourself, and then you're going to feel insecure about your engagements with these folks. And then unvalued or even undervalued. And this is where you get shut down. So, for example, if you go in with great ideas and you are constantly being, and it doesn't have to be all the time, but like continuously being shut down, then you'll feel unvalued, and then you're not going to want. You don't trust that your input is going to add any value. And so, would you extend that trust to them that they are going to provide, that they were going to take your information as valued? So just keep in mind here that we judge ourselves by what we feel capable of doing, while we judge others, or others judge us also by what we have already done. And that's from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. So others look at us and extend their trust also by our behaviors. So if you notice, there's a tie there. Tie being connection. And then what happens, what's important in order to trust? So Stephen Covey takes 4 different areas within his speed of trust to talk about what's important in order to trust. So I pulled those from his book. I think he I read quite a few books about trust, and I think he did a really good job with breaking this apart. And there's 2 primary areas. There's character and there's competency. So in character, he actually shows a picture of a tree, and then the tree, of course, has roots in it, right? So integrity is what's below the ground. So this is the basis behind everything you do. And this is what feeds the tree, if you will, of the rest of the factors of trust. And so in character, integrity is the root, right? You keep commitments to yourself. You know what your values are. You honestly listen to consider other people's views, and you continuously learn. So that's what the integrity piece is. And that's also the integrity piece that you would look to others and extend that before you extend your trust. And then intent. Do you have a genuine concern or caring for folks? Do you sincerely listen? Do you listen with your eyes, your ears, and your heart? And then do you acknowledge others' efforts for what they do, not just for what you do, but acknowledge others' efforts? And then do you want the best for all? So as you come forward with with your trust, is your intent noble? But character is only half the equation when we're talking trust. Because I can have all the good character in the whole wide world, but if I don't know what I'm doing, I can't be trusted to accomplish the task, the job, the project, the mission, whatever it is. So in competencies, he breaks it out in two different areas: capabilities and talents. And in capabilities, he talks about credibility. Do you constantly deliver value? And then experiences. Are your experiences broad enough to where you can bring different thoughts and different ideas to certain circumstances? And then with that, what about your growth? Are you continually growing as an individual, as a person, in terms of your leadership and your knowledge? And then do you have an attitude of improving? Knowing that you're not always right. Knowing that other people have bits of information, massive amounts of information, that could be really important to you. And then your talents. These are your naturally given gifts. Some folks are just phenomenally gifted. The musicians and the speakers, and they have a natural knack for doing things. So those are the naturally given talents. And then there's strengths. And if you haven't taken a Strengths Finders test, I really think you should. I'll have one of those posted on my website also. But that's how I found out that I would love to do coaching. It actually charges me, but I didn't know before I took my strengths and then received my first coaching lesson. So in my strengths, I'm an includer, a relator, positivity, learner, and a responsibility. All of that is coaching. So it was amazing when I went, oh my goodness, and I found out that that's what those are the attributes that you really need in a good coach. So those are your talents that you need. Stephen Covey says, what you hold in your consciousness seems to manifest. So what you're thinking is actually what you're seeing. That doesn't mean it's true or false. But if you're seeing a behavior go a certain way, then your consciousness is telling you a story about what that is, and that's your reality. And then, as Ronald Reagan would always say, trust but verify. I've kept that in my toolkit throughout my leadership time within government. Trust but verify. And when you extend trust, it brings happiness to your relationships, it brings results to your work, and it brings confidence to lives. And that's how Stephen Covey really captures that within his Speed of Trust book. And then within the 4 pillars, Stephen Covey then really breaks down the trust factors. So he has 13 factors to go off of, and I just finished a lean-in group. And in the lean-in group, we took a wheel of life, and I changed it into a trust wheel. And within that, 0, or I should say 1, the center point, which is the bullseye, is the most trust, all the way to 10, and that's your external trust. And what we did is we went through each one of these factors, these 13 factors, and basically put it within the bullseye chart of where we extended most of our trust, to include ourselves. So we had us, we had our partners, we had our family, we had our neighbors, we had our peers, we had our bosses, and we had coworkers. So those were the 8 areas that we looked at. You just make a wheel, right? And then so the trust factor number 1, when I look at self, do I tell it like it is, say what I think, give the facts, and make my agenda clear? And I honestly plotted that on the wheel. And what we found, which was, it wasn't necessarily so much a aha as it was an okay, I can see that, is that we trust ourselves, and we trust our partners, and we trust our families more so than we trust those around. And that would stand to reason, right? Because you're not going to keep people close to you. Well, some do, but majority of folks don't primarily keep the people that they trust inside, close to them. Primarily the people that they don't trust are the ones at work, are the ones in the neighborhood, and ones in the community. That doesn't, and let me rephrase that. It's not that they don't trust them. It's they have less trust. So some of them, they're really strong for me, and some of them weren't so strong. Like, have a track record of results and get the right things done. So I can say that my community has a record of results and get the right things done. But they don't make things right when they're wrong and apologize quickly. They make excuses. So the number went up and down on it. But anyway, I think you get the point here, is that we filled out that trust factor and found some pretty neat things, identified some pretty neat things that we pulled out of the trust wheel. And so when we looked at that, we said, in order to gain trust from yourself and others to get what you want, what do we need to do? And so we discussed that a little bit. Primarily what you need to do is you need to see yourself doing it. You actually need to visualize yourself doing that. Hear yourself doing that. And then feel, what would it feel like to do that? And then as you're going through the training, if you will, or whatever it takes to get there, speak about it in a productive manner. For example, if you're going to run a marathon, marathon's a good example of this. Can you see yourself doing this? And then if you need to go out and run in order to meet your marathon goal, it probably wouldn't be very beneficial for you to go, oh, I have to go run, I don't want to go run. But if you speak about it in a productive manner, you'll trust yourself more to not only get it done, but to meet your goal. And then behave in the manner intended for your desired outcomes. So if you get out there and you're sludging, shuffling your feet along, and you're not going through the motions like you should in order to achieve your goal, then you're not going to trust yourself as much. You know, that's something that we learned in the military, was train the way you're going to fight. Don't just go through the motions. Actually be it. See yourself doing it. Train in that manner, and then behave in that manner intended for whatever you want to accomplish. And then we also looked at the circle, and then we had asked, what have you learned about your ability to trust yourself and others? And then, are you creating the trust you would want from your children to follow? So let's say that you're bringing them to a restaurant and you wanted to save a couple of bucks. Not that I've done this before or anything. And you claim that your child is 6 because the cutoff age is 6 when they're really 7. And your child hears you. Is that what you want them to follow? Quite frankly, the 7-year-old's going to blurt out, I'm not 6, I'm 7. And did that happen? Yes. And did I learn my lesson? Probably. And I only say probably from that instance because my daughter's not 6 or 7. But I looked at that and said, you know what? That's probably not something that I would want her to pick up. I'd want her to be honest. And then how do you model trust that you want from others around you? So there's the law of reciprocity. Goodness begets goodness. So are you modeling trust like you would like for others to trust in you? And then what do you need? And so that's trust in terms of daily actions, right? And then what do you need to learn in order for your challenges with trust to go away completely when you're making a decision to completely dissolve? How do you get rid of guilt, shame, and worry based on what you had done so you can move forward? And then where do you feel it in your body when you're in the same situations so that you can identify when to or not to perform those actions, or decide to change your beliefs about the situation to create a better outcome? Because with greater trust, you'll be able to experience more outcomes, you'll be able to experience more opportunities, you'll be able to have more influence, and you'll be able to have more fun. But if you're still not certain, there's two other ways that you can look at determining whether you're trusting yourself or whether you're trusting others. Not whether you are, but whether you can. And so Stephen Covey came out with three questions, and then I have four that I like to use as especially for quick decisions. So the first question is, what is the opportunity or the situation or the task? And then identify the scope of the decision. For example, if it's an opportunity, like, do you have an opportunity to go back to school? If it's a situation, is the situation, are you in an unhealthy relationship? Or if it's a task, I got to wash the car, right? So what is the scope of the decision that you're making? And then what is the risk involved? So what are the possible outcomes? Can you visualize, and I know you can, what the outcome will be? Let's just pick washing the car. You can see the outcome of a nice clean car. You're happier, your car will probably run better. And then what is the likelihood of that outcome? Listen to what you're telling yourself. Yes, I will have the car washed and waxed and shining, bright to the sun. So I'm telling myself, positive things about the outcome of what I'm going to see and what I'm going to experience. And then what is the importance of the visibility of the outcome? So think about what you'll hear from other folks. And not necessarily is it because it's important for their input. Sometimes it might be. But let's just say we're washing the car. We can hear for a number of things, right? We're going to hear some things from probably our neighbors. Nice car. Woo, look at that shine. Or you can hear something snarky like, you're always washing that thing. And so what's the importance of that? And in terms of visibility, when other folks see you taking care of your stuff, they would have more trust with you in the neighborhood itself because you take care of your things. I didn't say they trust you all together. I said that just kind of shows that you care for your stuff. And then what's the credibility in terms of character or competence of the people involved, including yourself? So capture what you've seen and heard and experienced from others and decide if it's worth your time and effort. For example, the person who comes out and says, you wash your car all the time, I bet that person's vehicle or vehicles are probably not clean. That person probably does not care as much about taking care of at least their car like you do. So is it worth your time to hear that or hold on to it or change what you're doing? Yeah, probably not. But the positive feedback that you get, like, nice car, great shine. Hey, when you're done with yours, why don't you come over and hook mine up? So is it worth your time or effort or not? So those are the three questions, and I know there's some interlying questions within there, but that's all about the risk involved, right? Because in the risk is when you go through those feelings. And then I have another set of questions that I ask, and those are, what will happen if I decide to do this? And it could be any of them. Go to school, wash the car, stay in an unhealthy relationship. What will not happen if I decide to do this? What will happen if I decide not to do this? And then what will not happen if I decide not to do this? And then what I do is I run it through those coordinates and I see what comes of it, and see if it's, if the juice is worth the squeeze or not. As a friend tells me quite often, asks me quite often, is the juice worth the squeeze? I don't know, maybe. Let me run it through my coordinates. And then what's next? You're going to decide, you're going to plan, you're going to act, you're going to assess, you're going to learn, and you're going to modify. Wash, rinse, repeat, and enjoy the journey in your zone. So we make decisions every day, and right before we do, we are driven by an emotion. Before you make a decision, identify that emotion. Determine if the decision is aligned with what you want. Reveal the positive impact of the decision on others, and then act according to what offers the most beneficial intent. Not only just to you, but to everybody around you. So here's a really quick recap of what we just went through. We judge ourselves by intent because our inner thoughts guide us. We assess others' abilities to be trusted by the behavior because that's what we can see. In order to trust ourselves, we need to behave with the intent we want to achieve. In order to trust others, we need to better understand and believe the intent of others. If you are struggling with trusting or letting go, get to know the situation. Think about the track record that's been laid before you and determine if you're willing to take the risk. In the end, as long as you can learn and grow, you will be able to move forward. So thanks for joining me today. Before I go, if you're not already receiving my Ponderous Points newsletter, please send me an email to corinne.schultz@zoneofpotential.com. And also don't forget, I do take requests like a DJ. So until next week, stay in your zone of success. See ya.